Hello, I'm Robert Griffin, the Executive Minister here at the Sunshine Cathedral in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I want to thank you for joining us for worship via the internet today. And if you are ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, let me personally invite you to stop by and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. We also invite you to join us on our Facebook group or follow us on Twitter. But for this moment, let's go inside and see what exciting worship opportunity lay in store for us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Kathy Tullo. In the first service, this kind of worked. I'm going to try it now. My wife, Karen, who is one of the sign language interpreters, everybody laughed at that. And isn't it nice to say that my wife, Karen? So having said all that, we've been a member of this church for over 20 years. Way back when, a friend, Larry, asked us to join him at church one Sunday and offered to take us to brunch afterwards. About that time, Karen and I had been together for about 10 years. And we thought going back to church for us wasn't about filling something that was missing in our lives, but rather we felt it was something that would add to our lives. But what we got in return was much, much more. So one Sunday, we took Larry up on his offer for church and brunch. Sounded like a good idea to me. You know that feeling you get when you're in the right place at the right time? Well, we felt that first day we went to church, and we literally have been a part of this church from that day on. We were part of the first child care ministry. We worked in the garden team. We were both ushers at the 9 o'clock service for a couple of years. Karen eventually moved into sign language interpretation. That was one of something she felt called to do. And I moved into leadership. I've served on the board of directors twice. I'm presently on the board. I've been chair of the covenant team, and this is my third intern. And every other Sunday, I'm up doing lights with Trevor. And I want to thank this congregation for the response to the call for people to help us upstairs. We had a very good response. Thank you for that. So when we first came to this church, we realized that sharing our abundance became a spiritual practice. We put it in our budget. Just giving to church became a part of our everyday lives. And over the years, we've watched this church grow and change as Karen and I have grown together. We've been blessed in our lives, in our relationship. And I know that I would not be the person I am today without my church community and my commitment to share my gifts with this church. But more importantly, we need to know that we are the church, that together we take our talents, our commitments, our relationships, our abundance, and we create something that goes far beyond the walls of this church out into the community. So today, I ask you to prayerfully consider your stewardship to our church. If you haven't made a pledge in the past, consider doing so. If you do pledge, consider increasing your pledge, as Karen and I have done this year. The Sunshine Cathedral is what churches in this day and age should be. We create that together, sharing our abundance, giving our time, our talents, and our treasures. And next week, we will have pledge cards in the pews so you can make the pledge during our Stewardship Month. Thank you very much.
Our first reading is from the book of Isaiah. Arise, shine, your light has come. Divine glory has shone upon you. Though darkness covers the earth and gloom the nations, God will shine upon you. God's glory will appear over you. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Our second reading is from the Gospel according to Matthew. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem during the rule of King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem. They asked, "Where is the newborn Jewish king? We've seen his star in the east, and we've come to honor him." When King Herod heard this, he was troubled. He gathered all the chief priests and the legal experts and asked them where the anointed one was to be born. They said, "In Bethlehem of Judea, according to the prophecy. Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and found out from them the time when the star had first appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search carefully for the child. When you found him, report to me, so that I too may go and honor him." When they heard the king, they went, and look, the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with Mary, his mother. Falling to their knees, they honored him. Then they opened their treasure chests and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Because they were warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they went back to their own country by another route. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
That's the Sunday where the scripture reading is about Jesus goes to his friend and relative, John the Baptizer, and he gets baptized. So now you know the story. But I want to sort of go back to Epiphany. Epiphany fell in the middle of the week this year, and so you either had to do it early or you had to do it late. And I decided that we would do Epiphany late, which means instead of 12 days of Christmas, we've had 16. But if the mall can back up Christmas to Halloween, we can add 4 days at the end. So, right? So, but this is the end. But so we're talking. So Deacon Ed read that story, right, of the Magi coming from Persia. So there's an epiphany that we can have about that story. And the first thing I want us to realize, the first new awareness I want us to get from this story is that they are Magi. Hello. They are Zoroastrian priests from Persia. They're not Jewish. Jesus' family is Jewish. Jesus' community is Jewish. But these non-Jewish people from outside the community, these strangers, these people from another culture, these people from another country, these people from another religion, they're the heroes of the story. It's a very universalist message, and Matthew, strangely, is very good at that. Matthew is very good at naming and uplifting the other in his gospel. And so we see these magi, these priests in the Zoroastrian religion. It's sort of a fire cult in the East, where they worship God by and the name they have for the divine is Ahura Mazda. And so these worshipers of Ahura Mazda, these practitioners of astrology, these Zoroastrians, they come, and just as they are, they recognize the gift that Jesus is, the gift that his family is. They recognize the sacred value and the specialness of a peasant child in another place. They ask, where is this newborn king? King? This is a family that has no perceived agency. They have no power. They have no privilege. King indeed. But who notices that this peasant child has potential, that this peasant child is important and special? It's these others, these magi, these Zoroastrians from another country. And so we see what the Apostle Peter says in the Gospel, in the book of Acts, where Peter says, God shows no partiality. And Matthew is showing that by showing we may call God Adonai or Elohim or Yahweh over here. They may call the divine power Ahura Mazda over here. But no matter what title we have hung on ultimate reality, it is not excluding any of us. It can't, because it's omnipresent. And so there is the God of all, in all, through all, excludes no one for any reason. We have our vocabularies of motives, we have our traditions, we have our stories, but that's about us. We're all part of the universe, the one song universe, the one song of life. We are different notes in that song, but it's one song, and we're all part of it. And we see that in this probably legendary tale of these magi, because no one else knows anything about it, and Matthew's not writing about it until 100 years after Jesus' birth. I doubt the historicity of it. And then also, just from what little I know of astronomy, stars don't tend to travel. and where you could follow them. And if they were to travel, they probably wouldn't just stop somewhere. And if they would stop, they're way up there. How could you tell it was over this house? Doesn't it look like whatever house you're at, that's the way the moon is? The moon is right over my house every night. I don't know what you guys are looking at. It's over my house. So, but it doesn't have to be factual to be true, right? So, the truth is that we see the all-inclusive nature of the divine, all-inclusive love, leaving no one out for any reason. These Persian magi recognize the specialness of a peasant Jewish child, a Palestinian child. And they have gifts to bring. So not only do they recognize and travel and share, but they give gifts. They give gold and frankincense and myrrh. Well, gold is easy enough to figure out what that symbolizes. That's generosity, that's resources, that's money. And so they give their resources. And so we're giving the gold of our lives whenever we give time, talent, or treasure to help improve the quality of life of anyone else. But frankincense represents prayer or prayerful encouragement. The incense, if you're from a tradition that uses incense, that fills the room. It's the smell of prayer. We do it at Christmas Eve. We don't do it in the service because if you actually saw the smoke, everyone would develop asthma on the spot, even though it's hypoallergenic. But so we just do it before service so you can smell it. It's the smell of prayer. Originally, it was just air freshener. When you're committing sacrifices in the summertime, that can get pretty nasty quickly. So they would have cedar walls and incense in the liturgy to cover up the stench. But that became part of the liturgy, and so it started representing prayer. And so to give frankincense means to give prayerful encouragement. To give prayer, I'm praying for you, I'm thinking of you, I'm wishing you well. That is the sweet fragrance of frankincense that we can all give each other. And then, of course, they give myrrh, which is a healing herb. Someone asked me between services, could it be a different kind of herb? No, myrrh is myrrh. It's a good mouthwash. It can help cure sores in your mouth or help with a sore throat. And I was telling them, you wouldn't want to use myrrh for glaucoma, and you wouldn't want to use the other herb for a sore throat. They each have their own purposes, but myrrh is a healing herb. And so what are they offering in addition to resources and prayerful encouragement? They're also offering healing. And so not only do we see the gifts of the other, and not only do we see that the divine love that we call God is everywhere and includes everyone, but we see that those that we may often overlook or criticize or fear, they may have gifts to share. And that we can receive them when we recognize their sacred value. And so I'm wondering, as a community of faith, what are the gifts we have to share today? What are the gifts that we have to share with the world? And we love getting together, and we love having a good time. We're going to have such a good time at the Golden Girls Bingo, and we have such a good time at concerts and cabarets and film showings and picnics. We are the community that plays together as well as prays together. But you know what else we're doing? We are also offering this gift of joy to the world. And so what are some of the gifts, the tangible gifts, the gold, frankincense, and myrrh that we have to offer, that we want people to have? Why are we inviting all married couples to gather at the end of this service for a blessing to celebrate marriage equality? Why are we asking people from the service industry to come next week? A special invitation just to say thank you for all you do for us. And we want to bless you now. Why are we doing this? Why in the fall are we going to have a special service just for transgender people where we're going to baptize them by their name, the name they have chosen to represent who they really are? Why do we do that? Because we have gifts that we want to give. We want people to have peace and hope and joy in their lives. We want to be a bright light in the world. And so the gold that we have is our progressive message. And our progressive message is the message of God's presence, of the omnipresence that we call God. And we say it very simply as there's not a spot where God is not. And people need that. If you've been told that you were innately bad, it is very liberating. It is very healing to hear that's not even possible. Because what bad could exist in the presence of God? And the presence of God is everywhere fully present. So if God is omnipresence, that means you are in the presence of God. And whatever is in the presence of God must be sanctified, must be holy, must be good. Which is why we read in the book of Acts that we should not call that which God has blessed. We should not call it profane. That we decide what's good and what's good enough, but God has made no such determination. God, we're told in the creation myth, looks at all of creation and calls us very good. And why is that? Because we're in God's presence. We're part of God. There's not a spot where God is not. That is the gold of our progressive message. It's the message of God's all-inclusive omnipresence. The frankincense that we have to offer the world is the reminder that the future has infinite possibilities. That doesn't mean that the past wasn't really challenging. It doesn't mean that the past wasn't painful. It doesn't mean that we didn't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that we didn't suffer some injustice. It doesn't mean that we didn't have some bad luck. It doesn't mean that the world seemed to be coming apart all around us. It doesn't deny any of that. It just denies that that has to be the last word. The message of the Christian tradition, and every religious tradition has its positive message, but the message of the Christian tradition is that yes, Golgotha happens, but Golgotha is not the end of the story. That beyond Golgotha, there is more. There is peace beyond pain. There is hope beyond horror. And so, no matter what went wrong until just now, this is a new day. And the future has infinite possibilities. One day, there is Amendment 2 in Florida making it part of the Constitution to discriminate against same-gender loving people. And the next day, on Epiphany 2015, there is marriage equality in the state of Florida. And 6 months later, it's the law of the land throughout the country, the 19th country in the world to have marriage equality. The future has infinite possibilities. I went to bed one night an oppressed minority and woke up the next day a full human being. Isn't that a miracle? The future has infinite possibilities. One day, AIDS is considered a death sentence. And the next day, there are combination therapies that can help people live long, full lives. The future has infinite possibilities. One day, we're at war, and the next day, peace has been declared. The future has infinite possibilities. One day, we have a broken heart, and the next day, we learn that we can love again. The future has infinite possibilities. And so whatever we have been facing, it is the sweet smell of encouragement, of blessed prayer, of frankincense to learn, I am not my past. The past does not limit me. The past does not define me, because the future has infinite possibilities. That's our positive message. Our progressive message is that God is all-inclusive, an all-inclusive omnipresence. Our positive message is the future has infinite possibilities. And our practical message is you have purpose, and you have purpose, and you have purpose. Even Deacon CJ has purpose. His purpose is to test my patience. He's really good at it. God bless you, dear. Love me some CJ. So, we all have purpose. We have purpose. We each have a gift that is ours to share. Someone's purpose is to be an encouraging friend. Someone's purpose is to be a good parent. Someone's purpose is to rescue an animal. Someone's purpose is to entertain. Someone's purpose is to be a generous employer. So you have a purpose. But beyond that special gift that is yours alone, we all share a purpose. In fact, we share a couple. One of the purposes that we each have is to recognize our sacred value. A Course in Miracles teaches that we are never healed alone. If I can realize that I am a person of sacred value, then the mere fact that I have embraced that truth means I am bringing someone with me. I am lifting someone up with me. You know, there are lots of resurrection myths. There are lots of heroes and saviors and deities that are slain for the good of the community and are raised again. And that's good for them. That Caesar is raised to the heavens to watch over his empire. Hercules is raised to the heavens as a constellation to be adored. But the Christian message of resurrection, it isn't just about one person. It is about the lifting up of a community. It's about the lifting up of a movement. And so we see at Pentecost, with the Spirit infusing the body that we now call the church, that is the resurrected and returned body of Christ. The resurrection for Christians is that we are all lifted up. We have all fallen down, but we all can be raised back up. Our purpose is to be our best so we can share our best so that everyone can enjoy more of an abundant life. And our third purpose is just that, not just so that we can know how good we are so that other people can catch on, but then to do our best to create this kind of community where just walking in can be a healing presence, a healing experience, where just walking in you can be told, you matter. You are God's miracle and not God's mistake. You are part of the creation that God calls very good. Our message is one of presence and possibilities and purpose. It's progressive, it's positive, it's practical. 2016 is going to be a year where we embrace and share those gifts more than we ever have. Because I enjoy looking at this full room, it's not enough. I enjoy all the programming we have, it's not enough. I love all the volunteers we have, it's not enough. I love our top-notch, world-class staff, it's not enough. And you know why it's not enough? Because there's not enough people who know they are God's miracle and not God's mistake. There are not enough people who know they are part of a good creation. There are not enough people who know that they have sacred value. There are people who have been told that they don't matter, that they are a mistake, that they are an offense to God because of who they are or how they love. We watch TV and the news is always bad. Well, I'm going to let Fox have the bad news, and I'm going to let CNN have the bad news, and I'm going to let MSNBC have the bad news, and I'm going to let Al Jazeera have the bad news. I'm going to let PBS have the bad news, and Sunshine Cathedral is going to be the station that broadcasts only good news in 2016. War is not the answer, and so we're going to preach peace. And selfishness is not the answer, so we're going to preach generosity. And shaming and blaming and saying you're not good enough and you're on the outside is not the answer, so we're going to preach the sacred value of all people. And we are going to say to everyone, you matter. And until more people believe that, we're going to say it louder and in more ways. And to do that, we've got to be more. We've got to do more, and we can. So we're going to ask you throughout the year to be better disciples, to take more classes, to volunteer more hours, to give more money, to worship more frequently, to pray for your church every day, because we've got more to do. The world needs us to be a shining light on a hill, and we can be, and we will be, and as we live into that, 2016 will be a year of epiphanies, a year of possibilities, a year of blessings, a year of miracles, and this is the good news. Amen.
Thank you for joining us today here at the Sunshine Cathedral. If you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, we invite you to stop by and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. If you'd like to make a donation to the Sunshine Cathedral, or if you'd like to find out other resources that the Cathedral has to offer, please visit us at www.sunshinecathedral.org. Until the next time, we look forward to seeing you here at the Sunshine Cathedral.